So, dear friends, at the beginning of this Vasa, we were looking at this theme of reflection, this Pachavekana, from the ethical perspective. We considered the sutta given to the young child Rahula at the mango grove where the Buddha, his father, with this blend of sternness and kindness, admonished Rahula to think before doing any action with body, speech, or mind, whether that action would be harmful to himself, to others, or to both. And if it's harmful, he said, don't do it. If it's harmless, go ahead and do it. And then a second time, while in the middle of doing something, to again think, is this harmful or harmless? If it's harmful and we notice midway in the doing something, then stop. But if it's harmless, then we can continue and go ahead with doing that. And then again, after finishing, after doing something, or perhaps at the end of the day, or when we come to a pause or a break in our activities, think again for the third time of the things that we have just done, whether they were harmful or harmless. And then if it was harmful, then mention it to another good friend and make the determination, the resolution, not to repeat the same unskillful thing. But if it was harmless, then we may do it again and again. So we've been trying to develop the continuity between this theme of reflection or mindful awareness at this ethical level up to that same awareness which goes beyond the ordinary ethical level and looks deeply within our psychology to the very root of the factors that are keeping us tied down into samsara, that greed, hatred, and delusion, or the you could say in terms of the deeply rooted taints of existence, the clinging to sensual pleasure, clinging to existence, or clinging to ignorance. And then looking like more deeply at what concepts or ideas or thoughts or states of mind are perpetuating those factors that are blocking our liberation, or which concepts or states of mind or thoughts are supporting progress towards liberation. I tried to encourage you to realize your power and your right to find your own inner compass and to really try to know for yourself what way of thinking is moving you in the right direction. And this is the reason why I especially like the phrase that's sometimes used in the suttas, where it refers to what is the dark and the bright. What practices or thoughts are leading towards the dark, or what practices or thoughts are leading to the bright. I can even remember I discovered this several decades ago, that there was something going on with me where I was it wasn't at the level of like a confessable fault, but there was some kind of like evasion, going on with me of just something that I didn't want to deal with, and I was avoiding it in an unskillful way. And I just noticed something like a shadow had fallen. A shade had fallen over me. I was like, there's a figure that used to be in the cartoons that always had a cloud. And so other people could be in the sun, and that figure was under a cloud. And this is what I had felt that because of my not being as good as I could be, that I had stepped into this cloud. And so having that clarity, then one may know what to do according to the Buddha's instructions. Then we looked further at the considering the not the nutriments, but the requisites of life. The requisites and nutriments are very closely related. So it's not immoral to eat, to wear clothing, to take medicine, or to find a shelter from the open air. But these processes, which are inherently morally neutral, they and necessary, unavoidable, they are involved with the continuation of life, and they do create a danger for the mind to become greedy, for the mind to become attached, for the mind to feel, let's say, you don't just need to have, some shelter, a house, someplace to lay your head down that's outside, protected from the weather. But then the house has to be just like this. And then so much energy starts to be invested into what is that just like this, that with this thinking that the house needs to be in some kind of a certain way. And so then the views about what should be, the views about what we think that we need, and so on, can take hold of the mind more and more, and basically create a lot of sensual greed and create a lot of attachments. And so recognizing the danger in that, then the Buddha recommended reflecting about the necessities of life, to recognize the danger and to put up a guard so that the mind will not fall into that trap of being greedy or attached or rigid or clinging to wanting things to be in a particular way. For the monastics, this past Sunday in the sutta study, we were speaking about the what should be developed or not developed. And one of the part that we didn't really get to discuss on last Sunday was about the food that should be developed, or the food that should be cultivated, and the food that should not be cultivated. And I recalled afterwards, I didn't bring this out in the Sutta study, but we as monastics have, it's not just that we would do the reflection about the food, that we're trying not to be greedy, but there is also food that's not to be cultivated, food that's not to be taken. So the food that is offered after between noon and dawn for us is food that's not to be taken. Food that is the flesh of a living being that was killed for our benefit is not to be taken. Food that was improperly requested by us, except in certain specific instances where we are able to request food, like, for example, if we need it for illness, or if we've received an invitation. But the food that's to request the food and eat it, it's not food that's not to be taken. If we have food that's been stored away, like we had some left over from lunch, and you put it aside, put it under your pillow, and then think how you're going to have it in the morning. That's food that's not to be taken by us. And so having these kind of parameters, now as a householder, you will have a different set of parameters about food that's not to be taken, which is according to your values and your understanding. And you do that, you set a limit, you set a boundary. You know the measurement of food. You know, like, that this is okay, this food is okay to use, and that food is not okay to use. So, like, you might think it could be that for you, an entire quart of ice cream is food that's not to be taken because it's too much. So this is the second part of the wise reflection, is both having that awareness of letting go of greed and attachment each time we're using the necessities of life, and also having, at a more practical level, knowing that having certain boundaries around how far we go in getting the requisites of life, that those boundaries are a support for causing the mind to be calm, to be simple, to be peaceful, and to be contented. And so even those external things that one may do, and knowing the measurement of with the requisites is supportive of obtaining freedom from the fetters, freedom from the deepest roots, the deepest taints or corruptions that are keeping us tied down into this the rat race, the cycle of rebirth. So that was the second major theme that we developed during this Vasa. And then the third theme that I tried to present during this Vasa, it was about cultivating the wholesome, helpful, beneficial perceptions which are onward leading, leading us to liberation. So the perception of impermanence, the perception of the dangers or the unsatisfactoriness of this life we have as beings that are born with the destiny to become ill and to get old and to die. And just being realistic about these disadvantages, that's a perception. So when we reflect about that, we know it, we keep it in mind. That is a support for our path moving towards freedom. When we develop the perception of the danger in those harmful, toxic thoughts, the thought of harming, the thought of greed. If we develop that perception to such a great level that we can very quickly and easily recognize those toxic states of mind as soon as they come up, it's like we can see them a mile away. I compare this to when I was learning bird watching in years past. At first, it would take me a long time of examining the bird and comparing it with the book, and to try to figure out which bird it was, and then finally I could, get the name for that bird. I know which one it is. But then later on, I know those birds. I know the rufous-sided towhee. And I don't need to study it or spend a long time thinking about it, because I know how it behaves, I know where it lives, I know what kind of song it sings, and I know that it always starts to sing its song at the Bhavana Society in West Virginia in the morning, during the morning meditation. The towhee always begins their song, and they live right outside the meditation hall. And so with the first note, I can recognize, oh, there's the towhee. Or if it's a robin, I know where it lives, I know what it looks like, I know what it sounds like, and I know when it flies, it's got a certain kind of a pattern of when it's flying around. And so just a quickest glance, I know what it is, I recognize it. That's like the perception. And so then if I can perceive those states of mind clearly and distinctly like that, and know if it's a friend or a foe, if it's a useful one or not a useful one. And then just by means of that recognition, the mind automatically turns away from the harmful states of mind. And the mind automatically opens up and welcomes the beneficial states of mind. So I then think that it's useful to make a connection between especially the thoughts and the states of mind that we could experience throughout the day in all of the activities of the day, connecting that with the states of mind that we might notice during meditation. And well, it's something like there's the metaphor of the cowherd in the during the time when the crops are growing, the cowherd has to control the cows because they will have a tendency to go into the rice paddy and start chewing on the tender young shoots of rice that are growing up, and that will create a big problem where the cowherd will be blamed and a lot of trouble. So the cowherd has to constantly control the cows and keep them on the path, and they're constantly poking them with a stick and forcing to try to keep them on the path. So this is what it's like when we are experiencing a lot of negative tendencies. If we, because of a lack of mindfulness or a lack of clarity, if we do repeatedly get carried away and do things that are unskillful, even harmful, and are realizing in the middle of our actions that, oh no, I've fallen into harmful actions, or afterwards, when we're reviewing, saying, oh no, that was not very skillful. Or even that the mind gets into the misery of different kinds of obsessions or ruts or fabrications that are based on I should say, you could say, to be compassionate about it, it's based in the process of life, and everyone wants to live, everyone wants to be happy, they don't want to die, and most of the really unskillful patterns, at least they come from that skillful, not skillful, they come from something deep down, which is universal and positive. Everybody wants happiness. But there's this process of this bifurcation and the constant need for energy to acknowledge what's the wholesome and what's the unwholesome, and to be developing the wholesome patterns, and to be doing the actions that are supportive to a wholesome state of mind, and to not doing the actions that are supportive to negative states of mind. And so then this is the stage of the practice which has got quite a lot of effort in it. And a lot of what we think about when we think about this wise reflection, or this pachacekana, this reflecting again and again, holding the mirror up, does have that active quality of repudiating or actively relinquishing, letting go, preventing, stopping, cutting down, being in a certain way even like almost horrified by the things that are the negative things, the harmful things, but then for those things that are beneficial, that are desirable, even if at first it sometimes takes an extra effort to cultivate these things with the confidence of how these are supporting the evolution of the beneficial, wholesome states of mind. Then the second part of that metaphor about the cowherd is later on, after the rice has been harvested, and now we're going into the dry season, and so there's like a dry stubble of the left in the rice paddy. And then at that point, as a practitioner, we have harvested the result of our efforts. To whatever extent we've been making the good effort to be mindful, to develop wise reflection, to follow the Buddha's advice, to do that which is harmless and to avoid or give up that which is harmful. To that extent, we will enjoy the fruit, the harvest from those good efforts. And to that extent, we can now come into, especially in meditation and in life, a very relaxed, calm, open-minded state where we're not trying to control the mind per se. We're just being present for what's there and noticing with appreciation and gratitude the beauty of this purified mind, to the extent that this mind is showing us the fruit, the result of those good efforts that we've been making. There's in the Anapanasati Sutta, I was trying to think a little bit more deeply about this idea of gladdening the mind. Gladness is something that in English it's a little bit like trivial. It says, I looked it up in the dictionary, and the example I gave is, you feel gladdened when you find your puppy that was lost. Okay, so that's like, it's not like very deep. But the thing is that this gladness can exist any stage along the path of our practice, whether we're in the beginning, the middle, or the end. To the extent that we've made the good effort and we can notice the results of that effort in our state of mind, then we can feel glad that we can say, wow, the Blessed One was right. What a wonderful path of training He's given us, that we can see already my suffering is 20% less than it used to be, or 50% less than it used to be, or my suffering is 80% less than it used to be, or my suffering is 100% less than it used to be, depending on how far along I am in that path. And then I can see that this practice is fruitful, and I can gladden the mind with that. Then this idea of this samadhi, samadham, it actually has a double meaning. We usually think of samadhi as being the mind that's unified, collected, concentrated, composed, or still. In the Visuddhimagga, when they talk about samadhi, it gives resting the mind. So the mind comes to its object and rests on the object. But I've heard the caution from several wonderful meditation teachers to take care to don't confuse this concentration with clinging. Don't confuse it with something that's very uptight and effortful. Even this idea of resting on the object is a little bit dangerous, because it sounds like getting attached to the object and clinging to the object. That's not samadhi. So what I hear is that like samadhi is that the mind opens to the object and then is completely filled with the object of meditation when it's like a meditation practice. But then it has this idea, this unification or composure. The adahati has a root meaning of connecting or gathering. It has a secondary meaning, which we could think about. It has to do with kindling a fire. Especially a sacred fire. There's a sutta where the Buddha is talking about a Brahmin about the ritual of lighting the sacred fire. And he's saying, I don't need to light an external fire like that, because I light the fire within the mind. And so in that case, the samadhi, especially like in this breath meditation, it's not something that just becomes like paralyzed, but instead, perhaps we could think that it has some warmth, it has some brightness, it has some energy is present, even though it is still unified and collected and composed and still. It's like a still energy. So I that's a bit of a that last a reflection about the alternative meaning of samadhi as relating to kindling a fire is extraneous to the official theme of this talk. But what I want to encourage is that the idea that the culmination of this paccavekkhana, this practice of reflection, or this practice of yoniso manasikara, of reflecting deeply to the root of things, that it would cultivate in a state which has a beautiful quality of stillness, relaxation, and calmness, because at that point, part of the work has been done, and then we just have to watch and see what's there. And then emerging from that, based on wisdom and based on the reflection and the perceptions that we've developed, even whether we're practicing samadhi on the meditation cushion, or if we've obtained jhana, or if we've obtained the immaterial meditations, the wisdom practice is to see the impermanence in that, to see the cessation, the fading away, and to relinquish any attachment to that meditation in order to get the full benefit of that meditation practice. As if we have a great meditation and then we're clinging to it, then we've sort of missed the point. We've sort of missed the boat and not getting the full benefit of it. And so that is uh, what I have to tell you. Um, and now I would welcome any thoughts or questions about this. Where are you at with your practice? Are you having to constantly control the cow? Or are you able to sit back and just watch the cow? I said, oh, that cow. I see a question from the what? I think you're muted.
Hi,
Hello.
my question is, I'd like to know a little bit more about cultivation. Is cultivation a result of anything we try to aspire to create the results that we want? Or how does it work?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the meaning of the Pali word for cultivation, one of the Pali words for cultivation is bhavana. So the same word for meditation is the word for cultivation. It's said that the Noble Eightfold Path should be cultivated. So indeed, initially, one is letting go of worldly desires or worldly wishes and wants and replacing them with spiritual wishes, like the wish for liberation. And with that intention, undertaking these practices that are suggested for making the mind to become calm, more calmer, happier, more clear, more free, more less inclined towards grasping and clinging, less inclined towards afflictive emotional reactions, and so on like that. And so cultivation is definitely something that can be done with a goal in mind, and you can be assessing your progress along the way towards the goal that you have set. But we got to be careful not to be too much goal oriented, because at the end, if a person wants nibbana, the wanting becomes a blockage that prevents you from experiencing that final release. So there's a sort of like a progression of letting go of the less skillful things and picking up the things that are more skillful. But then in the end, we let go of everything, and we're not clinging to anything at all. But the Eightfold Path, developing and following the Eightfold Path, is exactly what should be cultivated. That is, you know what the Eightfold Path is? Right view, right intentions, right actions, right speech, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi. So that's the path to learn and to cultivate. Okay, Richard.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The Rahula Sutta that you were looking at, which one is that?
That's the Mango Grove Rahula Sutta. I don't have the number in offhand. Do you know the number? Ambalata Rahula Avada Sutta.
Oh, Ambalavati, the mango woman.
Yes.
Right. I see what you're saying. Okay. Oh, okay. I was just trying to look for it, and I could only find 5 suttas in the main Nikayas that mention Rahula. And one is just in passing, the Buddha is describing his accomplished disciples, and he says Rahula is the most accomplished in desiring the training. And then there's 3 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and then there's 1 in the, I think it's the Anguttara Nikaya. So I was looking through them because you were talking about nutriment and stuff, and I was wondering, oh, is that in those suttas? And I couldn't find it, but I think you were just associating the idea of nutriment with the other concepts you were explaining. That's all I was wondering. I was just wondering what the sutta is.
3 different ideas. The first was the idea from the Rahula Sutta, Ambalataka Rahula Sutta, about reviewing what's harmful or not harmful. And then the second
Right.
idea, the nutriments, using the requisites of life. That's the second idea. And then the third idea was cultivating the beneficial perceptions, or the beneficial states of mind. So those were 3 different segments that see what I'm doing is reviewing what we've been talking about through this Vasa. So the nutriment idea, I associate the nutriment idea with the reflection on the requisites.
Right. Yes. No, I remember you were giving some talks on nutriment earlier, so maybe some weeks ago. Right. Okay. So it wasn't from that sutra in Rahula. It was just, you were just going through the different things. Okay. I just wanted to read what it said in there. If that was in there, I wanted to read it, but I couldn't find it. I was just quickly glancing through those sutras and I didn't see it. But I did have an interesting insight. I think this came up in one of your recent talks about Rahula, where one day the Buddha got dressed and went for alms, and Rahula saw him, and he got dressed and was falling behind. And there's in the commentary, it says, because he was enamored by the Buddha's beautiful body, and he was thinking he also had a beautiful body. But as I quickly glanced through the sutra right now, I got a different viewpoint of it. Rahula in that sutta was advised by Sariputta shortly thereafter, who saw him meditating after that encounter with the Buddha, that, focus on the breath. So this tells you that Rahula was a very young novice at that point. I'm not saying whether he had already taken, the 10 precepts or not. I'm just saying novice in terms of his training, okay? And because he didn't even know about breath meditation, because he goes later on at the end of the day and asks Buddha, hey, what is this breath meditation? Sorry, Buddha's asking about, So what I think is going on there is because the Buddha is his father, and he's just attached to the idea of form of the Buddha. So he's just going along, it's kind of like people who follow gurus, and they're very attached to just following the guru and being in his presence, and like that. You know what I mean? It's a whole, I don't know if you ever had that psychology, but it's a whole psychology. It could be gurus, it could be Christian cult leaders, whatever, that type of cult of personality. So he's just following along, and so that's why Buddha says to him, form is temporary, right? And then he answered, oh, just form, Lord? And he said, no, the other 5 khandhas as well, So then he goes off and meditates on that instruction. So I'm not trying to second guess the commentators, but it just seems like a much more simple, plausible explanation, especially based on exactly what the Buddha tells him and how he reacts to it, and he thinks, oh, well, the Buddha's giving me some instruction, who would go off for alms now at a time like this? I just got this great instruction from the Lord. Let me go and sit and, and focus on that and see if I can really, understand that. Anyways, I might be wrong, but it just a thought that came into my mind while looking at that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Well, it may be that, yes, it's true that Rahula was attached and identified with his father, and that sutta. I don't know, I guess he could have been completely ignorant of the anapanasati, but it could be that even if we've heard about anapanasati, just hearing the instructions again and again can be beneficial. I sometimes think, you might think I'm kind of like not a good teacher because I just read you, or I just recite in brief the bullet points of the Anapanasati Sutta and giving the guided meditation instead of doing something that's new and original, or I haven't been, like Thich Nhat Hanh puts it into this most beautiful poetry, which is completely original on the same points, but I'm just repeating the same instruction over and over again. But I think that that repetition is actually valuable, and it's part of cultivation, is just hearing the same instructions, feeding ourselves the same instructions over and over again, listening to them, having them memorized, and even if they've already been memorized, just repeating them over and over again makes them like it become embedded into the subconscious, and that's part of cultivation. I'm going to call on Damon.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, you had spent some time on the recollections of old age, sickness, and death, and I find that at that time I started to practice that informally during the day, and then it very quickly fell off my radar screen because it just continued to do the opposite of gladdening my mind. So nonetheless, I would like to pick it back up again because you emphasize the importance of it. And also because I think it's, for me, it's been, it's a good practice to counteract being too lustful for life. Too lustful for Sutta studies and endless intellectualizing about the Dharma, that just I think I wouldn't be that concerned about if I actually found out tomorrow that I only had a month to live. So could you talk a little bit about the recollections again and bring them back on the radar screen for us?
There's a wonderful verse. Thich Nhat Hanh has got some chanting, some things to be recited, gathas that he's written to be recited, and he's got a wonderful and partly hilarious gatha about the reflection, where as you go through, like starting with yourself, that you're reflecting your own body getting old, becoming bloated, full of worms, and so forth. And he says, my body is being consumed by worms. I feel so happy. My body is just bones and sinews. I feel so happy. My body is just bones scattered here and there. I feel so happy. And then it goes through the different people. And one of the last ones in it is about the enemy. So my enemy's body is filled with worms. I feel so happy. If I suppose now I'll have to find the citation and share it with you in the group later on unless you're, but it's actually, it's a really powerful meditation. It takes, to go through the whole recitation takes at least an hour, more than an hour, to go through it, and it's a wonderful meditation. And just saying, I feel happy, saying this body is scattered bones, or this body is turned to dust, I feel happy. Just saying those words does cause a transformation of the heart in
Okay.
doing that meditation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Nirmala.
I wanted to add to Damon's question on the same thing. Is that the same thing as adding urgency and prioritizing the desire for liberation? Will reciting that gatha help?
That is one of the reflections that can be used to add urgency. Even thinking how lucky it is to be a human being with a sufficient intelligence to be able to hear this Dhamma and try to understand it, and what a rare chance it is to have taken a human birth in that circumstance. Knowing that the time that we have left is short, is a contemplation for a spiritual urgency. It's not the only practice for spiritual urgency. To me, actually, that assessment that we had at the beginning about reflecting before, during, and after each action to see whether it was harmful to oneself or another. Reflecting, discovering within oneself that I've been thinking thoughts that were harmful, or I did something that was harmful, I said something that was harmful. That scares me a lot and gives me a lot of spiritual urgency. There's a special meditation that I invented for myself. I name it the calling a spade. And if there's some afflictive emotional state that comes along, or if I'm feeling like very disturbed and unhappy or something, I speak to that emotion and I kind of say, okay, Mrs. Grudge, if you were the boss, what do you want me to do? And Mrs. Grudge wants me to start a war. So it's like so shocking to get out of denial and to realize that such a negative or such a really terrible impulse could exist, within our heart, even though we've been practicing for a long time. And so then, like, the shock value of discovering our capacity, to whatever extent we still have that capacity to go the wrong way, is, to me, it's an even more powerful aspect of spiritual urgency. They say that, one who's, as we've obtained the noble attainments, the stream entry path, or the higher noble attainments, then progressively certain kinds of unwholesome deeds become impossible. And so then we would be really safe. But if anybody is not yet a stream enterer, then you kind of like you have the potential, if your circumstances changed, like you could fall into a wrong path and really ruin it for yourself. One of the, this is another kind of a reflection, and say we may feel that, you know, our sanity has improved so much and our spiritual development has improved so much, but if we were captured and imprisoned and tortured or treated with a tremendous cruelty, would hatred come up in us? Or would we lose what we gained if we got thrown into some kind of extremely stressful situation? Or would we be able to keep whatever amount of, you know, purity and kindness that we developed so far? That's, you know, another part of spiritual urgency. But the contemplation of death is has two, besides spiritual urgency, it has two other benefits. One is it cuts off clinging, and one is it cuts off sensual craving. So it has three benefits: spiritual urgency, reducing clinging, and reducing sensual craving.
Thank you.
Perhaps this may be enough for now. We can give homage to the Triple Gem. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suvakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you, everybody, for your practice and your patient listening.
Thank you, Ayya. We bow to our teacher.
Thank you so much for this series of talks.
Thank you, Ayya. Thank you.
Thank you.